Hey everyone, this is Kevin Wade with Shred Services, North American distributor for Waydoo EVOs, here to take you through the unboxing and setup of the Flyer EVO. Now, as you can see, I already have it unboxed. There's not really much to go over there. It comes in separate boxes for the wings, the stabilizers, the board, the power unit, including the fuselage and the mast. Those are in separate boxes, as well as the battery. So essentially you're going to have it come in a lot of different boxes. However, if you'd like, you can purchase as an aftermarket accessory both an accessory bag and a bag for the board. So once you get everything out, this is essentially how it's going to look. I have done a little bit of cheating because I did already assemble the front wing and the rear stabilizer on the fuselage. However, that's just assembling it with a few screws. But in the interest of time and not having to show you something that I think that you can pretty much figure out, I have already assembled this into what we call a plane, which is the fuselage, the front wing, and the rear stabilizer. In front of me, I have the 90-liter EPP board. Again, you have a 90, a 130 in a larger size, and also a 75 in a carbon that's available. I also have the 65-centimeter mast, the smallest of the three. There's also a 75, which is carbon, and an 85 in aluminum. And then I have the large 2300 battery, as well as the wheel accessory, which I'll show you. It's a great accessory, amazing for transport, and in my opinion, it's a must-have when transporting the Flyer 1 EVO. I also have the new remote in my hand, very similar to remotes of previous years. You do have a longer trigger throw, as well as a built-in magnet. Before, the magnet was kind of attached in the same way that this key is, but now it's built onto the remote itself, which gives you a little bit of added grip, and also just makes it, so where it's not flopping around as much. So I do like that they added the magnet onto the bottom of the remote. Now, the magnet is used to turn the board on and off and activate any of the features within the battery. So one of the first things I like to do, and we discussed it before, with the Flyer 1, you did not have to do this, nor with the Flyer 1 Plus, but with the EVO, you can separate the mast from the fuselage. So again, you do have different mast lengths and also two different motor options. So it's nice that you have these things separate because you can purchase the parts separately. It breaks down a little bit easier. And like I said, you just have that added functionality and modularity. You do have a larger masthead than from the Flyer 1 Plus. I went over that in another video as well. But you also have these really cool LED lights on the bottom of the masthead that serve as underlighting for the board. So what you do here, and you're normally going to have a silicone piece over here kind of to cover this up. It does come included with the board, and you can use it for storage. It's a nice piece. You just take this, but you just want to make sure that these ports are aligned on both the mast and the fuselage, and then you just kind of plug it in. We do have some silicone lubricant that we recommend that you just put around these seals to make sure not only that it keeps a bit of the salt away, but that you have a secure and clean connection. I always say dry, cool, and clean are the three major things that you want to think about when you're assembling, storing, and operating any eFoil, really, but certainly the Flyer 1 EVO. So we're just going to take this, make sure it's lined up. You just kind of push it on, kind of wiggle it back and forth, and it's just going to sit into place here. So now that that's set, I'm just going to grab my Allen key. You're going to have a couple of different sizes. These smaller ones and then larger ones. Larger ones are going to be for the board, and the smaller ones are going to be for this connection here. So I'm just going to take these here, kind of start the process. And what I like to do is kind of wiggle it back and forth to make sure that the screw gets set and that you don't cross thread it. You'll be able to feel it because even as I'm tightening it, you should be able to get the first few turns with your finger. You shouldn't need the tool in order to start the process. So again, I'll just kind of seat this, start wiggling these down here. Make sure that we get them seated. That's grabbing now. Once it's grabbed on both sides, I'll kind of take over with the tool and continue to screw it down. Now again, as you're screwing it down, you can wiggle the masthead back and forth a bit if you have any trouble or resistance, but you really shouldn't have much resistance at all until you start to see that come flush. Now this should seat flush. This whole top piece should look very streamlined when you get done screwing it in. If it's raised up or you have a lot of resistance in screwing it in, I would start over and again use that kind of wiggle back and forth method to make sure that you are not cross-threading and that you are properly securing the mast to the fuselage of the board. So again, I'll just tighten this down, starting to get a bit of resistance here, and you'll see that it's nice and flush mounted and it will lock into place. So now we have what looks like the old school traditional power unit where the mast and the fuselage is all one piece. You can leave it like this. You know, if I'm taking it out of the water and I'm getting ready to go the next day, I'll kind of spray everything down on the outside, won't necessarily disassemble it. But if I'm not going to be riding the next day or I'm taking a break, it is nice every now and then for sure to remove this, make sure everything's clean, and fully disassemble it. So obviously fresh water, those of you guys that are fortunate enough to be using it in fresh water, you don't have to worry about that as much, but you always want to make sure that you're periodically checking your connections and disassembling to avoid any kind of seizure or just any issues associated with that connection point. Now, there are a couple of schools of thought associated with this. Some people will put the board on first and screw it on, and then they'll put the battery on last. I like to do the battery first. Waydoo, has recommended that you do the put the board on and then put the battery on. At least that was the recommendation with the Flyer One Evo. I do find that you can get a secure connection and kind of use the ground to kind of push in if you put the battery on and then flip the board over in order to put the fuselage and the masthead on last. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take this. Take my battery, which has a handle, which is great because the batteries are relatively heavy. This is a lot of the weight associated with the eFoil, but it makes sense. Batteries are heavy. You have a lot of power. Again, this is the 2300. So this is one of the largest batteries in the industry and certainly the largest battery with the Waydoo. So it does have some weight. One of the cool things that you'll see if you look inside of the board, I'll show you this real quick, is inside the battery bay, you do have these springs. And what they do is they help to prop the battery up when you're pulling it out. So it just kind of helps take a little bit of that initial weight, so that way you're not trying to fight that suction and also the weight of the battery when you're removing the battery from the board. So again, I'll take the battery here, flip this piece up. This is one of the secure connection points. I'll put it down, put this in first, secure this. You'll hear that snap in there, and then I'll push this down, make sure it's sitting nice and secure. Now, in the previous version, you had two plastic kind of retainer screws that you would rotate 180 degrees in order to lock the battery in place. While that was a very secure connection, you still, well, say relatively secure connection, this connection I would say is definitely superior. You have locking mechanisms on either side of the battery screen, which is also where that connection point is. And you have a third connection point down here. So it's very, very solid. You get that nice solid security feel, you know when it's locked in, and it just gives you peace of mind and also that added rigidity that you're looking for. So there, you're in a quarter turn, that's going to lock it into place. Same thing here, I'm going to push down, give it that quarter turn, and that's going to lock it into place. You'll see that these are recessed, and actually something cool happened when I was filming another version of this video before. I pushed down on one side and turned, and waited a little bit before I turned the other side, and I actually got an error code on the battery, and it said on the screen that the battery was not installed properly. So that's one of the other advantages to these full LCD screens. It does give you a lot of information and tries to do its best to make sure that you're installing things properly, as well as alert you to any issues associated with the board. Now that you have these two connection points and this is locked in, you can take this piece, this just snaps in, and this just acts essentially as a cover for that third point. Now that I have this fully assembled, we're going to turn the board over on the other side, and we're going to install the power unit. All right, now I've got my board turned over here. I'm just going to take the power unit, rotate it. Again, I'm going to make sure that the connection points are lined up. Of course, you don't want to put this thing on backwards. It's pretty intuitive, but again, make sure you got it relatively lined up here. I'm going to put this in the same way we installed the mast to the fuselage. Kind of use that same method, just kind of wiggle it down to make sure it's seated. I'm going to take my two screws here, get down, put the screws in place, and then again, I kind of wiggle this around to hand tight it, make sure it starts, the threading process starts accordingly. Feel free to use some of that silicone as well on these connections. It's not going to hurt. Like I said, it just prevents corrosion and also prevents any seizing when you're trying to remove the screws, especially if you've had your board assembled for an extended period of time in salt water. So I like to start by securing the connection point that's closest to the actual connector, or the screw that's closer to the connector, just to make sure that that's really seated in there properly. We'll take these, and then after a while, we'll give it a couple extra turns here. And you'll start to see this seat flush. You might have a slightly raised edge, but really for all intents and purposes, it should be relatively flush. Again, I kind of use that wiggling back and forth method to make sure that I have everything seated properly. Just turning this, and you'll see it kind of suck into place there. So it's a nice flush connection there. Wiggle it around the back. Make sure that is properly seated and connected. And there you go. Before I turn the board on and show you some of the features, I want to point out what I believe is a must-have accessory for this board. It's really cool that they've started to integrate things like this. You have a placard on the back of the board, and you have these two inserts. The inserts are for the wheels. So you just take these and you can screw them in. They line up. Have those kind of wing screws that you guys will remember from the previous board. And you just screw these directly onto the back of the board. And now you have wheels. Very simple, easy to understand and operate. It just allows you to have the board upside down and roll it to the beach. Now, obviously, you can still purchase a bag as an accessory with wheels. There are other ways to transport the board, but in my opinion, this is the most efficient and easiest way to do so. You can leave these on the dock, leave these down by the beach. They don't take up much space. Throw them in a duffel bag or whatever you'd like. They are wider than traditional plastic wheels, and they do have a bit of give to them, so they do work also relatively well on soft sand. But I think it's a great accessory, and for me, I definitely have one. I have one on this board, obviously, and we will have these on all of our in-house boards. Okay, so to power the board on, again, you're going to use this magnet that's attached to the bottom of the remote. Same procedure, or similar procedure rather, to the Flyer 1 Plus. But like I said, now you have that magnet attached to the bottom, which makes it even easier. So you're going to press and hold. You'll actually see a bar that shows you that it's powering up. Brand new happy noise, a little more elaborate than we had in the previous model. I'm going to press and hold the remote. Light comes on, both the lights. Now, this board is already paired, but similar to the previous board, if you do want to pair the board, you would just press and hold the minus and the power button. It goes into the Bluetooth scanning mode. It's going to pick up on any boards in the area. It's going to show you the board. You're going to press and hold the trigger. Oh, sorry, just pull the trigger, and this light's going to come on. Again, this is already paired, so that wasn't necessary, but just to show you how it works. I'll press the power button to back out of that mode. And now that it's on, same thing. If I pull the trigger, you still have that lock on. I'm going to press and hold the minus button. That's going to unlock it. The lock there disappeared. And now the board powers up. Take it all the way through the speeds. Yep, and it's going to show you there on the board. You see you have 26, which is the percentage on the battery. You also have it right here on the display. So again, these displays somewhat mirror each other. It even shows you the voltage and the amps that you're running when you're powering up the board. It's almost like having RPMs, which is pretty cool. As you pull the accelerator, you'll see the readout. It'll also show you things like battery temperature, the battery condition, how many times you've used the battery, any information that it feels is necessary for you to safely and effectively operate your Flyer EVO is going to be on this remote or on the board. Now, of course, you're still going to have apps. You're still going to have update apps and things of that nature like you had before, but you will also have direct updates and other things that will make it a lot easier to own and operate your Flyer 1 EVO. Powering it off, it's going to be the similar procedure. I'm just going to press and hold. You'll hear the beep to confirm what I just did. Waydoo logo, lights have gone off. Press and hold here. All set. Simple as that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at shredservices.com, any of our retailers on our dealer locator. A lot of people out there that want to spread the stoke of Waydoo, give you all the information necessary to make the right choice. We hope that choice is a Waydoo, but either way, we hope to see you out on the water. Thanks.